Greetings, friends. Shabbat Shalom. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining me. I hope you all enjoyed your country birth celebrations last week. The fireworks that went off were fun to watch. They didn't disturb your pets too much. My dogs go crazy when fireworks go off. Of course, they go crazy over all kinds of things. And I see there were 2 accidents with NFL players and their hands with fireworks. So you really got to be careful with those things. And it was not just country birthdays. There were a lot of other birthdays. I hope that Claudia had a fantastic birthday, as well as her mother, Herta. And I'm sure Sandra had an awesome birthday. And she shares a birthday with Ringo Starr. He looks fantastic and still puts on a pretty good show. Now, he finally received his personal induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an institution which once might have been a Hall of Fame, but these days I'm not so sure. Anyhow, he's not bad for 75 years old. And coming next week is the birthday of the great string virtuoso Martin. And I know that will be celebrated in music circles everywhere. Now this week, the Lord tells Moses that his party is over. He shows him the promised land and tells him he's not getting to go in. And Moses has his final conversation with God, even though he is around for another book. But because he's Moses, he asks nothing for himself. He asks for a successor for the people. No one but Moses knows any of this yet. And as the great George Harrison Ringo Starr song says, all I got is a photograph, and I realize you're not coming back anymore. Well, friends, this is an odd parsha, because it begins at Numbers 25:10, partway through an incident that it's named for, but it really should begin towards the end of Balak in Numbers 25:7, where Phinehas, the son of Eleazar and therefore the grandson of Aaron, kills an Israelite man and a Midianite woman. There are those damned Midianites again, having supposedly sex in the tabernacle, which was, of course, the suspected red tent, the Kubah, which was a not bad late 90s novel, but a very weak TV miniseries from last year about biblical women told through the eyes of Jacob's daughter, Dinah, who you never really hear about. Now, the whole scene and the killing is a fascinating read, and you really got to read it. But what a statement by God to open this parsha in Numbers 25:11. Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my fury from the children of Israel by his carrying out my jealousy among them. So I didn't finish the children of Israel in my jealousy. Wow, there goes that jealous, petty, killing God again. He never says what the fury or jealousy was about. And the not fully speaking his mind is a bit of a problem. And God says, and it shall be his and his seeds after him, a covenant of eternal priesthood, because he was jealous for his God, and he made atonement for the children of Israel. It shall be his eternal priesthood, but as Aaron's grandson, it was his already. So where is this reward? The death of Aaron's first 2 sons, Nadab and Abihu, saw Eleazar elevated to become the successor to Aaron, and now his son succeeds him. And since we know the role of high priest is not earned, it is given by virtue of birth, he would have been high priest, Gadol Kohen, anyhow, without this reward. So to quote an ancient commercial, where's the beef? Friends, this is Phinehas, perhaps best in English as Pinchas, a story about killing for religious purposes and to please God. I don't know. Is it a good thing to reward for killing in the name of religion? Isn't that something that seems to be happening more and more these days, and it just seems to be condemned more and more so? Is it ever right for some and not for others? Commentators have been troubled by Phinehas' zeal in killing the 2 people. Now remove the part of the story that tells you that one was Israeli and one was Midianite, and simply see it as his executing 2 people committing a ritual crime. 2 non-Levites were in a sacred zone that they were not allowed to be in. That is a path to justification. But for me, it is still not acceptable in any circumstance. Friends, there should be no killing on religious grounds. We are a universal family of believers, but just like we may speak different languages, Russian, Chinese, English, French, we also speak Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu. But our hearts unite in our love and compassion and our universal belief in a higher spiritual power. Now, just as Numbers began with numbers, a census by tribe, it is ending in a similar fashion. The 600,000 it opened with is pretty close to the 600,000 it closes with, even though there were countless plagues, rebellions, and punishments of death inflicted by God. And these are the ones, though this 600,000, who will receive the distributed promised land. You see, the aim of the first census was a military conscription for the march through the wilderness. And that function was reflected in the numbering of all males 20 years old and above. But they're all dead now. Here, on the other hand, this census is intended to lay the ground rules for the distribution and the division of land. And that becomes huge. But friends, for many, this Parsha is a return to boring. But without stories to stoke the imagination, it is a chance to revisit certain key things. Now, the idea of the red tent as the sanctuary is not a for sure translation. The Hebrew kubah is actually quite unique to this text, although it has been linked with the Arabic kubah, which was a small tent of red leather used for cultic or for conjugal purposes, and which gives rise to the English word alcove. The contention that the term refers here to the tabernacle, and hence that a violation of the Israelites' sanctum is at issue, is a little bit strained because the tabernacle, the Mishkan, is nowhere else referred to as kubah. But with multi-covered, leather coverings that we read about when we talked about the building of the tabernacle, and this execution, it is simply read that way. But perhaps it simply was a red tent of cultic or conjugal purpose. So what would have infuriated God? We don't know. There's just a lot of, the Torah is just open to too much interpretation for some people. But it's also a chance to revisit the offerings for the major holy days. Not the reason for the holy days, simply the offerings for them. Beginning with the Sabbath, the new moon, Passover. And then in Numbers 29:1, that unknown holiday. And in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall not do any act of work. Well, that's not so bad. You shall have a day of horn blasting. Well, by horn, of course, we mean a shofar. And we know the day referred to is now celebrated as Rosh Hashanah, but we do not know what it was celebrated as then, except for when it lined up with the equinox. Then, of course, we hear about the next holiday, which would be the Day of Atonement, Sukkot, and Shavuot. If you weren't sure of the sacrifices for each of those days, you are reminded that's what this whole section is about. But a major difference is there, my friends, is hardly noticeable unless you have a photographic memory like Lexi Gray or look for such things, but which suggests that perhaps this section was added in post First Temple times. There is no mention whatsoever of the tabernacle, the ark, the cherubim, or the magic 8-ball, being the Urim and Thummim, all of which were mentioned when these laws and these holy days were first mentioned, and all of which were gone by the end of the First Temple period. So perhaps it's not so surprising they were not mentioned here. They didn't exist anymore, which tells us when this part was put in. Now, if that recap does not thrill you, well, the thrill is gone. The thrill has gone away. You done me wrong, and you'll be sorry someday. Goodbye to the late blues brother king. Awa Akwawala, hail and farewell. See, probably what is more important in this Parsha than anything, at least I think, is this Parsha shows us the beginning of women's rights by law. It takes effect, now it's not completely, but it is a start. Unfortunately, it did not go far enough, but it gave rights to ownership, followed by rights as provided by the marriage contract, the ketubah, from around the beginning of the Common Era. And unfortunately, women's rights have been kind of on hold since then. Well, I guess everything in its time. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend. Well, maybe not roar, and certainly there is no going back. But friends, you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing. The distribution system was done. A few women come forward, they speak up, and they make a point about their right to inherit. And God said, Zelophehad's daughters speak right. They should inherit. Now, why should it take God saying they're right? Shouldn't we know that? Did we not talk about the fact that all are created equal? Unfortunately, interpretation narrowed their rights, and God's silence ever since has not helped matters much. Now, I myself stand by God's simple statement in Numbers 27:8. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, a man who will die and not have a son, you shall pass his legacy to his daughter. So let's take a quick look at this, my friend. It is an incredibly significant piece of biblical history. And Moses brought forward their case before the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, saying, rightly do the daughters of Zelophehad speak. You shall surely give them a secure holding in the midst of their father's brothers, and you shall pass on their father's estate to them. Should a man die without having a son, you shall pass on his estate to his daughter. And if he has no daughter, you shall give his estate to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall give his estate to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, you shall give his estate to his closest kin from his clan, and he shall take possession of it. Well, it seems pretty clear to me, until you read a little bit further on in chapter 36 about that comment here where it says that the land should stay within a clan or tribe, which does throw a bit of a monkey wrench in what appears to be equal rights. But it also further demonstrates that when man starts to interpret, things go a little screwy. Now, you see, it tells us women can inherit their father's land. But now their tribe realizes that this leads to a new problem. If these women marry men from other tribes, then their land will pass by inheritance to the sons whom they will have. But tribal identification goes by the father, not the mother. Contrary to modern Jewish belief and overall practice, identification in the Torah is always patrilineal. You see, tribal territory was not to be diminished. The allocation we read about and read about earlier was to be forever. And this is a big thing, this whole land distribution thing, because that's what the Jubilee was about. It was about the 50 years returning land to its original family of ownership. Now, we could, of course, praise the Bible for how far it went, or we could be critical that it did not go further. But we would be better to examine how far it went in its age, and how much this contributed to the transformation in the balance between men and women in the eras that followed. The larger point is similar to the one we talked about regarding slavery. The Bible does not forbid it and attempt to bring it to an immediate end. Rather, it provided laws of treatment of slaves, which involved granting respect, rights, compassion for them. And I believe this eventually helped to undermine slavery as an institution. The attenuation of slavery and the increase of women's rights, those are two things that have really taken place as major developments of the past century. The Torah's laws played an early and seminal part in birthing and nurturing both of these revolutions, but they are far from finished, both of them. Now, as I said earlier, Moses has his last discussion with God, and he asks for a successor to lead the people, and Joshua is chosen. And Moses asks, who will bring them out and who will bring them in? So the Lord's congregation won't be like sheep that don't have a shepherd. The image of a shepherd of the people has been the image of the leader since man's earliest recollections. And we see an incredibly powerful scene as Moses lays his hands on Joshua, Yeshua, another famous name. And this, my friends, has been the method of rabbinic ordination, or smicha, ever since. It is a powerful moment of the transference of energy. And I'm coming up on the anniversary of my ordination. And it's always a powerful moment engraved in my memory because it is about energy, just the words Moses really used. The need for man who has spirit within him, either the spirit of wisdom, Ruach Chakma, or the spirit of God, Ruach Elohim. And friends, all living flesh has an animating spirit or life, breath in it, but only the few are endowed with a spirit of understanding or visionary presence. It's there for all to tap into. We need to all just tap into a little of that understanding again. Rights shouldn't be fought for or given. They are our right. I'm reminded of that fantastic Whitney Houston Mariah Carey song from Prince of Egypt. Many nights we've prayed with no proof anyone could hear. In our hearts, a hopeful song we barely understood. Now we're not afraid, although we know there's much to fear. We were moving mountains long before we knew we could. There can be miracles when you believe. We need to believe again, my friends. Now, some will win, some will lose. Some were born to sing the blues. Oh, the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on and on. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. The world is sacred, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Friends, light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom. Be well, be happy. Be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace, for freedom for everyone, and into terror and hatred. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. We share this ride together, men and women equally. Now, while it may not be too politically correct to say, lyrically it was brilliant in 1972, and it is just as brilliant today. Woman is the N-word of the world. Yes, she is. If you don't believe me, take a look to the one you're with. Woman is the slave of the slaves. Yes, she is. If you believe me, you better scream about it. Thank you, John. Scream about it, friends. We all have a right to be free. We all have a right to be. Thank you all. Love you. See y'all next time. And I do love seeing you. And again, remember, your wishes do come true. Bless you all. Shabbat shalom. Have a fantastic week. Take care. See you soon.